there. Well, we still continue this conversation, but now we're looking to speak to a victim of identity theft. A very important conversation, and of course, as much as there is no casting of aspersion here, the minister did state yesterday that, at least in that specific press release, it was stated that Chidimma in herself is not responsible and couldn't have been because she was an infant at the time. But beyond that, even with her mother, it was stated that at this point, it remains a preliminary report. So nevertheless, in as much as the conversation continues around identity theft, at this point, nothing is conclusive insofar as her mother is concerned. But a lady by the name of Lulama Ntentesa joins us just to tell us a bit more about her specific ordeal as somebody who was a victim of identity theft. Good afternoon, Lulama. Thank you very much for joining us on The Full View. You are most certainly one victim of identity theft. Some people might think it's a simple issue that you can resolve by presenting your ID and then all is back to normal. But it really can be a costly exercise, a very traumatic exercise that can deny you the ability to enjoy certain rights as a citizen. Just take us through your story.
Well, thank you everyone for having me on the show. Basically, it was in 2013 and around June, I decided to download credit report that we get for free. And when I did that, I discovered that as early, maybe around 2012, someone had stolen my identity. They had actually gotten an ID that was issued in 2005. My first ID, which was the Green Book, was issued to me in 1999. So I never have lost that ID. I still have it, despite the fact that I've since gotten a digital card. So it was a shock to me that the report said that I had opened a cell phone account from a certain company, and I had taken up 2 contracts, and there were a whole lot of credit applications that were under my name. And worse off, it said that I now lived in Kroonstad. I'd never been or lived outside of Durban my whole life at the time. And so shocked. It even had, so I was completely, I Europe, and they then said that it is, I can dispute it if I wanted to, but then I...
All right, Lulama, pardon me for interjecting there. I think we're struggling to hear you properly. A very important conversation with you just sharing at least your experience insofar as identity theft is concerned. We want to try and re-establish that line so we can hear you a bit properly. Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. We continue our conversation on identity theft. We're joined by Lulama Ntentesa just to share her story with us. Good afternoon yet again, Lulama. You were still sharing your story, perhaps to start at the beginning.
Okay, so it was in 2016, and in around June, I discovered that when I downloaded the credit reports from the credit bureau, I discovered a whole lot of accounts that I had not opened or applied for. And some of those accounts were from a particular retailer that sells cell phones. And I had 2 cell phones under my name that I was not aware of. So I contacted those companies directly, and I contacted that company, and they started to send me the whole contract that I had supposedly signed. And that contract also had attached to it were pay slips, as well as a fake ID that had a face that's not mine. And when I queried this, they said definitely it was me. Then I started to send them details because it said I opened a contract in Kroonstad. At the time, I had never left Durban, which is where I was born and raised and worked. And so my whole life at the time. And so it was a shock to me that I now worked and lived in Kroonstad. And when I looked at the contract, it even had a bank statement from one of the banks that I banked with. And I looked at the accounts, it wasn't my account. And I also contacted that bank. That bank said, oh, wait a minute, this is not your account, it's not in your name. But according to that fake statement, it was my bank account. So
how did this ordeal affect you? Pardon me for interjecting there. How did this ordeal affect you emotionally, psychologically, and even just your credit itself, or your ability to actually attain certain things on credit?
it was a traumatic harm, because what it does is it disrupts your life. You have to now prove that you are you, that you didn't do this crime of getting credits and getting these items that never were delivered to you. You have to go to the police. You have to open a case. You have to follow up on the case. You have to now dispute each and every one of those items that are listed on the credit bureau. And further to that, your credit record gets affected, which means that your credit score will be lower, which means that when you do need to use credit, you are unable to use credit, you will be affected, because you even get higher interest rates because you are such a bad payer, because you accounts you did not pay for that you are not even aware of. I mean, some people have accounts that they were not aware of that were opened 4 years ago that they never paid for. And so therefore that taints your name. And further to that, for my own career, I've progressed career-wise, but that affects your career if you want to be in management roles, because you are a bad payer, you have financial problems that you are not even aware of, because it's on your credit list when they do checkups on you. It's not just...
And they don't give you an opportunity, I suppose. In certain instances, they would do that credit check without you, and then perhaps take a decision without bringing you into the room to ask you, why exactly do you seem as though you're an exposed individual?
Absolutely. It really, it's not just, I'm sorry, it has risen because of a particular case that involves Miss South Africa. It's not just lying about your identity it affects lives, other people's lives, not just one person.
What's the individual court though? And how easy or difficult is it for the police to deal with such cases?
Well, I can speak for my case. I had a police officer that looked into it. So my case, I registered it in Durban, in CR Swart, the station there. They passed it on to Johannesburg. Johannesburg passed it on to Kroonstad. Kroonstad then started calling me. So you can imagine how many months that must have been. And when the investigating officer told me that, okay, I'm going to look into it, then he looked into it. Months, if not even a year or two later, I came back and said that looking at his investigations, this person has stopped using my identity, and therefore, and they could not find this person. So then the case is dropped.
Thank you very much, Lulama, for joining us and sharing your ordeal. That was identity theft victim Lulama Ntentesa speaking to us.